My father's friend has a house at the lake up in northern Michigan, and it has a very long driveway leading to the house. Toward the beginning of the driveway, there's a little cabin with a nice fireplace. One evening, my father and a few of his friends were having a fire, telling stories and having a good time. My dad suddenly hears a woman cry out, "Help me!" and he asked if any of the other guys heard it. They said they didn't, and they all became quiet and listened carefully. A few moments later, they all heard the cry of a woman calling for help. My dad grabbed a flashlight and shined it into the darkness of the surrounding woods and told the woman to follow the light. A few moments later, a young woman appeared. Her clothes were tattered and she was bloody from all of the branches and limbs scratching her. They cleaned her up and asked her what happened. The woman said that her boyfriend dumped her in the middle of nowhere after she refused to do sexual things with him. My father and his friends then asked if she lived in the area, and she said their house wasn't far from where they were. A friend of my dad's offered to give her a ride home, to which she accepted. She went home, and when my dad's friend returned, they called it at night and went to bed. The next morning, the friend that took the woman home drove back over to where he dropped her off the previous night. When she returned to the lake house, he looked pale as a ghost. When my father asked what was wrong, he told him. I went back over to where I dropped the girl off from last night to check on her, and another woman opened the door. When I asked if the girl was home, the woman told me that she's been dead for several years. I was lying on my back trying to take a nap and completely unaware that I had even fallen asleep when I heard someone else in the room with me. I wasn't too concerned at first because there were people home with me and I didn't really feel like opening my eyes. They came closer and I felt a weight on the couch beside me along with a weight on my back, as if someone was digging their knees into it. Suddenly, a man's voice spoke. It was calm at first, but I didn't recognize it and I felt the point of a shotgun dig into my shoulder. By this point, I was horrified. His voice was building into an angry and ecstatic tone. It wasn't that I couldn't move, though if I tried I probably wouldn't have been able to. I simply didn't dare. I couldn't move, speak, open my eyes, or give any sign at all that I was awake out of fear that my consciousness might prompt him to cut his speech short and for him to pull the trigger. The man's voice grew, and he started putting more of his weight behind the gun. I can't remember exactly what he said, and I don't know if I knew what he said at the time either. By now, he was screaming in between short bursts of hysterical laughter. He sounded like the embodiment of psychosis. Just as he was leaning all of his weight into the gun, and just as he was about to pull the trigger, all I could think was, "This is it. This is the end." Then, all of a sudden, his weight and the gun vanished and I snapped out of bed on a December afternoon with birds chirping outside. I was 13 years old, and I lived in a double-story townhouse with my family. My best friend was staying over for the night, and we locked my bedroom door and slid a chest of drawers in front of it so I could try a cigarette for the first time. We were leaning out of the window, giggling as we attempted to light the cigarette, when all of a sudden my puppy started barking. It scared the shit out of me, and when I turned around I saw that my bedroom door was wide open and the drawers were back where they were, next to my bed, and my puppy was sitting in the middle of the doorway. I've never screamed so much in my life, and I'll never forget it. I threw the cigarette out of the window and ran downstairs and straight out the front door, and I sat outside for hours expecting something else to happen. A few months later, I had another friend staying over, and just as we were about to go to sleep, my bedroom door swung open and slammed into the wall. I walked out onto the landing expecting to see my mom, but I could hear her doing dishes in the kitchen. After that, I begged her to switch bedrooms with me, and she did, to prove that there was nothing wrong with the house. A few months later, we moved out for reasons that my mom wouldn't tell us. This happened in my aunt's house, and it involved two of my cousins, my older brother, and my dad. My aunt's house has only 2 floors with pretty much only one exit, and the top floor has a balcony above the front yard where you can see people leaving or entering the house. My cousin and my brother were hanging out up there until my dad called my brother down. They were conversing when they see one of my cousins, let's call him Danny, exit the house. It was a little weird that he didn't even say goodbye, but they figured he was rushing to get home. When my brother returned to the balcony and saw two silhouettes, he was pretty confused. According to Danny, both of them were just sitting there waiting for my brother to come back, and neither of them had left the balcony. My brother hurried back down to my dad and asked if he too saw Danny leave the house, and he said that he did. That's when my two cousins came down and everyone was wondering who they had just seen leave the house, but also why he looked so much like Danny. This was on my 7th or 8th birthday, and my best friend at the time, who was 10, was with me. We were having a sleepover, and she said she wanted to stay up late, so we did. That night, she told me she can see ghosts and can speak to them. Chills ran down my spine as she told me that ghosts were in my house, and even in my room at that moment. She said some ghost she knows was there, and I felt something cold touch my face. She told me a ghost had just kissed my cheek. She also told me about another ghost that was in my house, named Summer. Summer started moving the balloon I had in my room and moved it back and forth. Summer then went into my Hello Kitty light that I got for my birthday, and suddenly the light flickered on and off. My friend unplugged it, but Summer kept turning it back on, without it even being plugged in. They fought for a while, trying to keep the light off. All of a sudden, the lamp launched in the air and started doing flips, and then smashed against the wall. My friend then said that Summer wants to go into my body, and I was terrified. I said I didn't want that, and my friend said fine, Summer can go into hers. Summer then went into my friend's body and was sitting on the bed before looking down at me and saying, "Hi." She tried to stand up, but she failed because she wasn't used to being in my friend's body. Summer looked up at a poster I had and said, "That's pretty, I like it." I, hiding behind the covers, uttered a soft, "Thank you." Chills ran down my spine as Summer laughed and said, "You're scared, aren't you?" Suddenly, my friend appeared in her own body for a moment, and she was saying that it was dark and that she wanted to get out. Summer left, and my friend was back in her own body. She started saying that it felt like she was in a jail, and it was very dark and very scary. Ever since then, I've believed ghosts exist, but I've never actually seen one, just what they can do. I haven't seen much since then, because I don't live in that house anymore. Perhaps they are still with me, watching over me. Every now and then I'll feel as if I'm being stared at, and I'll see something in the mirror and turn around to see nothing there. I can't help but wonder, what would have happened if I let Summer go into my body?